right, so good morning, everyone. Thanks for hanging in there for a minute or two. I wanted to make sure we were streaming on Facebook. I tend to get a little bit of pushback from Facebook these days. But I'm so excited to be back doing Business Brew after taking July off, and I'm super thrilled to have Stacey Clary joining me from Hold On Now. So what we'll do, for those of you joining us through Zoom, I'm going to go through my list as I see you and ask you to just do a quick introduction of yourself if you're comfortable doing that. If you're joining us in your jammies and you don't want to share your camera, that's fine. But if I see your name, I'm probably going to ask you to say something. So we'll just run right through. And also, I have you all muted. So let's keep it that way unless you're being asked to talk or unless you have a question you want to ask. You don't have to actually raise your hand. I was just showing, and we all know raising your hand is a question. So first on my list is Annie. Annie, do you want to give us a quick introduction to who you are and how you're doing this morning?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I am new to measurement. We are a B Impact consulting company, B Corp consulting company. And through the last month or so working for measurement, I've met a lot of amazing business owners in the area who are wanting to do more social and environmental good. So some good vibes flowing from me over here this morning.
Oh, I love measurement. I'm so glad you're here because I know Kara won't get up this early. So
Yes. She mentioned to me multiple times how it was. Yep.
Annie, explain what you do one more time. A B source company, say that again.
Yeah, B Corp certification is a global sustainability certification that kind of encompasses community and environment and how you govern your company and really values transparency. So we help businesses get certified along with many other things.
Yeah,
so,
I'll look into it.
Stacey, it's not like a government designation. It's run through a nonprofit, but some pretty big brands have done it. Athleta is one. And then Patagonia, and then there's a brewery, Hub Brewery out of Portland is certified, and then they partner with Patagonia on a beer that is super tasty.
Oh, that's awesome. Such immense potential. I'll look at the website when I get to it.
All right, Annie, thank you so much. I'm going to mute you. And then next up is Emily. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning. I'm Emily. I am the community client engagement manager at Bernardo Wells Architects. I work with Gretchen, who is also here today, and I am happy to be here. Thank you for putting this on, Josh. You know, we were just talking yesterday about how networking is now like this. But if you are joining, you know, some larger association networking events, there could be 50 to 100 people on there, and the connections aren't as meaningful. So it's great to network with a small group this morning.
I want to interject that Bernardo Wills has been a client of mine forever, and I'm so happy that you guys are here, and I'm excited to talk about you, or, you know, to hear from you about what your thoughts are about what I do. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Emily. And speaking of that new normal, I just want to throw out anybody who's watching now or is going to watch later. The idea of doing a Zoom as a, you know, whether it's a workshop or a webinar or a meeting or like what we're doing, a networking thing, you can record that and it becomes content that's you can use later. And that's my favorite thing about it, is that you can repurpose the content to become something that you use after. And so while you might not get it all the live eyeballs that you want during that time, what I have seen time and time again is the number of people that continue to engage with even something like this, where it's better live, but the content and the value lives on. Like Gretchen and Emily joined me to talk about, you know, going back to work safely. And then I wrote a blog based on that and then shared that out, and people continue to go back and revisit that. So it's really, really good stuff. All right. So next on my list is Gretchen, who I don't see. Oh, wait, no, I do see. Good morning, Gretchen.
Good morning, Josh. I am Gretchen Renz from Bernardo Wills Architects, and I'm the business manager. And yes, we have worked with Stacy and Hold On Now for forever. And so I'm excited to get a chance to hear what you have to say about what's new, and also find out if it's time for us to update our program, which I'm sure it is. So.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gretchen. Next up is Mr. Rob Rowley. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Good morning, everybody. So, Robert Rowley, I'm a real estate business attorney for about 26 years, downtown Spokane. I'm big. Josh is one of his fanboys. He's really done a lot. Gives me a huge amount of feedback on marketing and things like that. Lawyers are usually idiots when it comes to these things. Josh is giving me some direction on many things. So, good morning.
Robert, I feel the same way. He's given me a ton of direction too. So I think, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Stacy. My favorite thing that Rob does is he gets his Google My Business report every month, and then he shoots it over to me in email for like my feedback. So he's always like, okay, where am I at? Like, and then I ask him how's business, because he'll get like a ton of views and a ton of, new reviews and stuff. So I always ask, that's great, but is it leading to new business? So we always end up having really good dialogue about my favorite thing, analytics.
Hey, wait, we don't do analytics for me. I think I need to figure that out. Like,
I know it costs extra.
Okay, well, we'll have to talk about it. I'd like
All
to.
right. And then last but not least, as far as those on the Zoom side, is Wendy. Good morning, Wendy. Oh, Wendy's mic is broken. Well, I'll give a quick introduction. Wendy is with Deer Park Physical Therapy and Fitness Center and the gym in Deer Park. She's wonderful. They're wonderful. And if you're up in the area and you're hurting or you just want to get, fit again, it's a great, great location. And they have a pool. So that's my introduction for Wendy. Sorry if I butchered that, Wendy. All right, Stacy, last but not least is you in terms of introductions. Go ahead and hit us with who you are and what you do and why you're here this morning.
So my name is Stacy Clary. I am the owner of Hold On Now, as thankfully Josh introduced through the invite to have you here. My job is to help businesses say hello and please hold in a manner that builds relationships and generates revenue. So it's meaningful, the first impression that someone has of you, whether it be on your cell phone, your business phone, whether it be meeting you in line at a grocery store. Like, we all make impressions. We may not always be our best self every second of every day, but when it comes to your telephone, you can be your best every single day, because it can be recorded, and it needs to be recorded effectively. That on the hold side, it needs to be creative and engaging, so it is kind to your customer. And then equally, it needs to be timely, so that it generates questions, so that you can generate the additional revenue that you deserve, because you are the one that created the marketing or built the relationship to get that phone to ring in the first place. So all I want to do is reward you for the work of getting that phone to ring and maintaining those relationships in a positive way. So,
Stacey, you said something that I want to ask more about, and so I'm sure we'll talk about the larger, organizations like Bernardo Wills and some of the businesses out there that might have a phone system. Mm-hmm. But I know there's a few of us on, like me, who run it off your cell phone. So does it matter what my cell phone voicemail is set up if I run my business off my cell phone, and if that's also my personal cell phone? Like, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think that so yes, the voicemail matters. And yes, if you're using it for dual use, good for you, right? But be yourself. So when you're doing your voicemail, you can use that recording for dual use, no problem. But make sure that you're the upbeat and or properly professional person when you're recording that voicemail. So Robert, as an attorney, as a lawyer, you're very professional, but you also need to be friendly in that recording. So you wouldn't necessarily want to do a super serious stoic recording with a bunch of noise in the background, because that might lead to the impression of a little bit of chaos and unorganization. But you might want to record it in your office and make sure that you prepare your script in advance so that it's friendly, the right amount of friendly, and that you're smiling when you do the recording. So it's an invitation to me to don't be intimidated by me. I'm here to help you. Please leave your name, number, and the time you called, and I'll get back to you right away. And then get back to them right away, right? Some people can be very serious or very rushed in their speaking, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. I'm already nervous. I don't want to work with this person now. So you have to think about those teeny little things that are so easy to adjust to make sure that you're representing yourself the way you want to represent yourself.
So your first piece of advice there is, especially and then this can go whether it's a phone system or your cell phone, is don't be scary.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
And don't be rushed, because we've all been around people that are really anxious and tense, and it's contagious to a certain degree. If you're rushed, I'm rushed. Yeah. First impressions make a big difference. Don't be unorganized. Robert, did you do your own voicemail at your office? I'm sure you did.
Actually not. I have, I used Fiverr, and I hired a professional voice actor back east, and to do it right, I wanted it to be done professionally, because it's just me and my secretary, so I wanted to create a little bit different appearance.
I love that I made an assumption. I love that you went to those lengths to do that. And I'm sure it wasn't too time consuming, but the result, now that it's locked in and there, you don't have to worry about it anymore. So congratulations, good job.
And there's that had a British accent, and there was a little bit of a British accent in there too.
Oh, I love that. That's great. And that is the barrister in you.
And it costs $5, so that, and I'm cheap too, so it tends to work well.
That's great. That's great. There's lots of resources like that.
So Stacy, don't be scary, be yourself, don't be rushed. And did I hear you kind of say that you should also be, maybe even kind of asking them questions or getting the conversation going, even in the voicemail? Did I pick that up from you?
It depends on what you do. Yeah, I mean, you could. A voicemail needs to be short and to the point, and represent your image. But an invitation is a good idea. So, you're always asking. It's starting to rain on me, and I'm getting rained on. So funny. It's an invitation for somebody to leave a message. So you know how you have to kind of ask for the sale, right? And you're not asking for a sale in a voicemail, for goodness sakes, but you're saying, you're kind of making an agreement that it's a two-way street. And if you go ahead and leave the information for me to contact you, then we can take it to the next step, or etc.
But I guess the cynic in me wants to challenge that and say, while you might not be making the traditional sale, your voicemail, so you're not able to answer it live.
Right.
So you're asking them to do something, and you're asking them to leave you a message or give you information. So while it's not a sale, there is an ask involved. And so I think making sure your voicemail is, all the things you talked about, be yourself, don't be rushed, short and to the point, represent your image. You're still trying to get something from the person that's calling you, which is, them to leave a message, especially in this day and age. How many people leave a message anymore, right? Especially if I call a friend or a family member and they don't answer, I don't leave a voicemail. I get off the phone and then I text them.
Right.
So how do you manage, so your voicemail is an opportunity to, it's not a sale, but there is an ask involved, right?
Right. There is, if somebody's taking time in a business setting to call you, they're responding to something that you put out into the world, right? So A for effort. You have done whatever you have done through an advertisement, through an event like this, 100 different ways for someone to know that you exist. Then they determine that they want something from you. And then they take the time to search for or dial your phone number. And you just want to make sure that once they take those links, that you meet them with what they expect to receive from you. It just needs to it needs to all make sense. Otherwise, it's an off-put and it's an inauthentic. Like you market yourself to look like this, and then this is what I hear on your voicemail. I'm so confused. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we were talking about that just before we jumped on, which is that idea of if I call a business and either the way they answer the phone, which we'll get to, or their voicemail is unprofessional or not well done, you can't help but think, if this is how they treat their voicemail, how are they going to treat me as a customer? It's a natural thing to think. And I tell people that all the time with like their social media presence. If you're ignoring and not treating it with any care and people find it, their first assumption is you don't treat anything with care, right?
It's true.
Okay, so let's transition that from, personal cell phone or business cell phone to, if I work for a big company and they've given me a cell phone, how much care do I need to take in terms of what I put on my messaging? Is it the same rules apply?
Same rules apply. Absolutely. Same rules apply. Do we want to work with somebody who's, depending on the business, I mean, if you're a nuclear scientist, you know what? I don't want you to giggle when you record your voicemail. Okay. I want you to be, appropriate in your tone. But, as a general rule, if the business has given you a cell phone to use, you need to make sure you state your name and your company name and the ideal time for a return call. And texting is great too. Just, during these hours of business, feel free to call, text me, and I will respond, within 2 hours, etc. Just being clear and kind, because that's what you're going to expect when you do business with that person anyway. Clarity, kindness, responsiveness. So that all feeds into that business cell phone voicemail.
So Stacy, if you have employees and you're handing out cell phones, or they have a cell phone that they're using, what are your tips for that person and how to communicate what you're talking about? I mean, obviously we could just hire you and have you come in and run through a whole staff training and do that whole thing. But what about if I'm just, if it's a part of my handbook or my onboarding with new employees? What are some tips for that environment?
The tips would be just a conversation, and I would hope that maybe, if you're handing out cell phones, you do to sales staff or staff period, you've got to create the expectation upon delivery of that phone that you have a professional responsibility to sound like the corporation, like the company. So a simple paragraph, like with the cell phone, hey, when you record your voicemail, we recommend that you do it. Search on the internet and find the variety of ways to record your own voicemail. Or here's a script, which would probably be the ideal. On your voicemail, you just create a little paragraph in a script. We recommend that you do this, but make it your own, right? So you don't want to say, hi, I'm Stacy Clary. I am salesperson from Hold On Now. I would, even though the paragraph might read like that, hi, say your name, company name, blah, blah, blah. You would make it your own and rehearse it like 1 or 2 times, and then record it in your car, in your driveway, in your garage, or in your room, in a quiet space.
Not in your bathroom where it's super echoey?
Super Halloween. In your closet. I couldn't get in my closet. My closet's not very big. So that
I want to key in on what you just said, which is, and I think this applies to a lot of the conversation that we're having now and probably even later, which is if you're doing the recording on your own, practicing is important. Talk more about the role practice has in this whole thing.
It's honestly the first couple times you're reading from a script. So let's say, Emily, you get a new cell phone and where'd she go? She's not here. Or Gretchen, you know, Bernardo Wills gives you a cell phone. You're like, okay, I hate my voice. Everybody doesn't like to hear their voice. No one likes to hear it back. So you're uncomfortable. You're kind of nervous. This isn't your comfort zone. And so you're like, okay, I'm just going to write out what I'm going to say. So you're like, okay, hi, I'm Gretchen. I am the business manager at Bernardo Wills. Right. And then you'll say whatever you want to say. It'll be brief. It'll be maybe 2 or 3 sentences. And so you'll just want to read it a couple times so that you own it. And it sounds like you're confident, not like you're afraid, because you don't want to be afraid to receive the voicemail. You don't want to make the person on the other end think that you don't want to talk to them. So this is something that through the volunteer work that I do and through my background, I just know that the first read is generally not the best read. It's usually the third read in. And so just read it 2 or 3 times and then push the record button. And if you don't like what you hear, you're going to laugh, you're going to delete it, and then you're going to record it again. And it might be like, oh my gosh, I can't even say my name. And then you'll delete it and then you'll do it again. And no big deal. It's just you and your phone. You got, you know, no big deal. So you get it right. And then you're like, oh my gosh, it's set, it's perfect. And then you move on.
So my son, who's 17 and has had a job, but he didn't really have to apply for it. He taught snowboarding up at 49. And then he got a real job and he was out applying. And his voicemail at that time was one of those ones where they say hello and then they try to trick you into talking.
That gets me every time.
And he gets this call. He gets a call back from somebody who wanted to, you know, interview him, and it was from Ziggy's. And the hiring manager leaves a message, and I mean, shockingly leaves a message. And Ethan calls him back and ends up having a really good conversation with him. And at the end of it, the guy said, "I'm really glad you called me back because I wasn't gonna call you back." And Ethan goes, "Why?" And he says, "Well, because of your voicemail." And he says, "Well, what did you think when you heard that?" He said, I didn't think you were a high functioning member of society." So you want to leave the impression with your voicemail that you're a high functioning member of society.
Yeah.
All right, Stacey, talk to me now about, so we've covered voicemail. And so I think that applies even if it's a landline phone or a voicemail on your cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a larger company and you have a phone system and it's an auto attendant, right? So when I call, it automatically picks up. Walk me through some of that. Like, I definitely have what I think they should be doing, but like everything, like how many times should it ring before it answers?
Right.
What should the messaging be? Where do you land on music? Hit me with all of that. That's the big stuff. So
ideally, a live answer, so a committed, dedicated receptionist is the best way to receive your client calls. We know that that's not always possible. Second, if you can't have that live receptionist committed and dedicated to receiving the calls in the same manner and level of enthusiasm or professionalism that represents your brand, then sometimes it can be the representative of the company. So maybe it can be, you know, the CEO that has been out in the community building the relationships and is super recognizable. So that person is a wonderful person to say, you know, to do that recording. And there's a variety of different ways it can be said, but what it does is it builds trust. Like some people might say that it's unprofessional for a CEO to do something like that, but it just depends. All right. It just totally depends. So the bottom line is a dedicated, committed person answering the phone, number one. Second, having somebody of the same caliber, quality, leave the auto attendant or record the auto attendant recording. So how you route your calls. If it's an auto attendant and you own like Ziggy's, for example, so you own a construction company or something that's of that sort of company, you would want to hire, if you wanted to, a voice talent that sounds as rugged and strong as your brand, and then mix it with the appropriate type of music to create a feeling that sounds like your brand looks and feels. So it's what you would expect if you walked through the door. So what I'm saying is an auto attendant or a receptionist saying hello needs to be the receiving of what you want, what you would expect your customer to feel if they walked through the door of your business. So then the ringing, honestly, it should only ring like 3 times. Sometimes, I mean, picking it up on the first ring, that's amazing. But I mean, really 3 to 5 times is ideal. And then, you know, if your business is open and you've got somebody else on the other line, it's that communication of, hey, you know, your call is super important to me. I'm just finishing up with a client. Do you mind if I place you on a brief hold? Or would you rather me take your name and number and I would be happy to call you back in just a minute? And they're like, hey, no, you know, what I need is, I'm super excited, so please put me back on hold. So then they're going to hold for the minute to minute and a half. And then your system's going to ring back to remind you that they're there. So that's important too.
So that thing you just said, how many times have you called a business and their first thing is, you know, thanks for calling, blah, 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 let me put you on hold. They don't even wait for you. It's just like, boom, hold. And then you start, why even bother answering? Why not just let it go? Like, how do you navigate that? If you're just, and we talked about this before we started, the restaurant, when you call the restaurant and they act annoyed that you're even calling, and you're like, why do you even have a phone then? If that's how you get, so how do you, if you're busy or your environment is busy, but you still want to create that even keel, really nice, welcoming, what are your tips for your employees or for yourself on that, in that situation?
Well, I think that somebody, and I don't know other people's roles like management who are joining us today, but Gretchen, from your perspective, like, you know, is it your experience that you work with your staff on how they manage the telephone and right? So, I mean, do you as someone that trains or works with staff have a 10-minute little speech that you might say, you know, here's ideally how we would love for you to represent Bernardo Wills?
Yes, we typically do that as part of the orientation, at least for that front office position. I'm realizing now that we probably have to have that same conversation with everybody that we hire who's going to be talking to anyone outside the office is, how do you handle those kind of calls? But yeah, we typically do that for the front office because the phone won't ring and then all of a sudden it will ring constantly.
Yeah.
So being prepared for, will you please hold or can you, having that conversation.
You know something, I know that my business and personal world, so like I'm surrounded by what I do and I really genuinely love what I do and I know it makes a difference. But I really feel like the most important person in a business is that front desk receptionist. And I happen to know firsthand what's that like. I was at Spokane Public Schools and I answered the phone at the front desk of the admin building for 2.5 years. Seems like 4 years, but it was so much fun. And people thought I was crazy for sitting there. They thought I was Looney Tunes for wanting to be at the front desk. But I'm a people person. I love to talk to people I don't know. I'm a waitress at heart. I'm just that kind of person. So it was really fun for me to enjoy it. And they'd never had anybody that had been assigned to that front desk that wanted to be there. So, you know, they were answering phone calls from parents that, you know, that were concerned about important things. And I would take the extra step to like make sure that not only the teacher was emailed or it got up to HR or whatever, do you know what I'm saying? And then follow up with an email, and they make sure I would just give them my word that I would do my best, that what they're dealing with is tricky and I'm happy to support and help them. So anyway, my point is the receptionist is, and the hostess and your sales staff, your HR director, all of them, they're all equally important, but that front desk person that represents your brand, it's really important that you get the right person in that place.
Stacey, I can't emphasize that enough. We work with a business, and I'm going to be super vague, and it's not because it's not a real story. I just don't want to call anyone out because they're on the call. I'm just kidding. They're not on the call. No one, but we work with, like professionally, we work with a service provider, and we have considered switching and likely will. And I'm not kidding you, based on their front desk person and how they answer the phone. They're so off-putting, and they have tried to justify it by saying that they're screening calls. You know, they're trying to cut out all the sales calls and the marketers. But every time we call, it's, you know, thank you for calling, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, I'll say, hey, this is Josh with Tinderbox Marketing. Can I talk to my contact? And they'll say, well, who are you again? Who are you with? Why are you calling? Do they know you're calling? And it's how hard would it be? And I know they have it. How hard would it be for them to just type my name into their CRM or type my business and verify while they're listening? Yeah, that I'm a client. Instead, I feel like I'm getting, you know, I'm just being interrogated on if I'm a legitimate caller.
Yeah.
And we even brought it up to the person we work with, and his response was to justify it. There was no empathy. It was like, well, you know, we get a lot of spam calls. Cool. You know, it's like, that doesn't help me feel any better. And so I really want to emphasize that point you made, is that your receptionist, your front desk person, your administrative assistant, whatever you call them, the person answering your phone is the single most important person in your business. And if it's you answering your phone, that means it's you.
Mm-hmm. And you can even say no nicely and mean it. You can say, you know, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, Josh, like if they're interrogating you, you know, or call screening you, she can be nice about it. She can say, Josh, Jerry is just, you know, the load is super high. Your call is really important. Just to prioritize things, I'm just going to let you know. I don't know, whatever you're going to say, but I'm just saying, like, you can still be professional and protect yourself at the same time. You don't have to be a jerk.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a good time to put you on hold, Josh, and just double check with, you know, Jerry is, you know, that's something that we do at, you know, BWA when I was the phone answerer, was just ask the person they're calling for. And because you do get you know, with a 40-person firm, you do get a lot of sales calls.
Yeah.
But it's if I screw up and am rude to the person on the phone and they aren't a salesperson, then that's a big mistake. And that could mean the difference between a happy client and a very unhappy client. So
maybe that unhappy client is going to tell whoever you just connected them to, and then you're going to get a bad review.
Yeah.
And what's your excuse? I don't know. You know, maybe I was having a bad day. Okay. Maybe I was screening calls and I don't know what to say and I'm uncomfortable. Like, help me understand how to screen calls politely. Like, that's a valid question.
Are we going to cover that today?
That could be definitely worth covering. Yeah.
Well, dig in, get going. Don't wait on me.
No, but and Gretchen, I put it back on you. Like, you might have, you know, the principals of the firm saying, you know, putting an expectation on you to protect them from unnecessary sales calls. And so the dialogue would be, you know, hey, Jen, you know, you answer the phone, Gretchen. And it's like, and I introduce myself, I'm Stacy, and I'm with, you know, I'm with the ABC light bulb company. And our light bulbs, and you say, hey, okay, Jenny or Stacy, what is what can I help you with today? And then I would say, you know, the new green, because you do green building, right? Light bulbs are the best, and I've got this new product, and you're going to need to then say, hey, Stacy, would, you know, in about, let's see, next Thursday, my principal of the firm has some time between now and then. Would you email me some specs on your products and some pricing, and then let me review it? And then we'll discuss it at our Friday meeting. And then I'll get back to you if it's something he's interested in. So now guess what? You're going to review it, and you're going to say, you're going to eliminate that call by making that call back. But that's a higher level, I guess, dialogue. But there's nothing wrong with that. The impression's still positive. They still have a positive impression of Bernardo Wills, but it's sincerely something you're not interested in. So making that person do a little bit of extra work would be a good screening process, possibly.
Yeah.
Okay, Stacy. So we've dug into a ton here. Tell me about. Did anybody have anything to jump in with that on that note? By the way, are we good? Okay. So Stacy, tell me about if I have an auto attendant answer, and if I have, you know, I'm not able to answer live. I have an auto attendant. Walk me through some of the messaging do's and don'ts, the music do's and don'ts, and that whole thing. What should my message say? And if I do have to put people on hold, what should my hold messaging be saying?
Well, we talked a little bit about the auto attendant and the voicemail. So it's sort of one and the same, making sure that it's scripted, that it's rehearsed, that it's recorded in the proper space so that it reflects professionalism. Then routing the call is important. So the phone rings, you have it set to ring 3 times, the auto attendant picks up, it gives your inbound callers 3 or 4 options, not 28. For HR, press 1, for sales, press 2, for the health department, I mean, I don't know, lost and found. I mean, I work with a lot of different companies that have a lot of really important departments that they're trying to route calls to, and they want to route them efficiently. And so we're going to do that. We're going to review what the options are, and we're going to, priority number 1 is this, because we get the most calls for this. Perfect. And put this in first position. And then what if we combined positions 2, 3, and 4 and made that option 2? And then what if we did option 3? And then what if we please always give someone a 0 out for the receptionist? Because sometimes companies are intentionally not offering the 0 out. And we've all been in that loop before where you're like, wait, where's the 0? I just want to talk to a live person. My issue isn't addressed in this prompt 1, prompt 2, prompt 3, prompt 4. And then you hang up, and then you're like, okay, well, I really need to figure this out. I really need my money back, or I really need to order more of this. So anyway, then you call back. So getting your call flow correct. And then if on the on hold side, with a phone system, you know, you have hold space, you have park space. And so listening to what your default is important, because the systems come with a default, and it comes with a default because silence is just not polite. So they fill that space with the most inexpensive sound. We've all heard it. It's like somebody's on a piano just doing this to make sure that you hear something so you know you're not disconnected. So they put, you know, an inexpensive sound there that sounds inexpensive and irritating, which has nothing to do with your company. So you just want to make sure that whatever system you have, whatever the default is, suits you well. If it doesn't suit you well, then you want to look to other resources. And there's many resources. Because if I respond to an ad, if I respond to a conversation we had, And if you put me on hold, help me matter to you. Help me, who wants to buy something from you, feel like you want me to buy something from you. So whether that's music or messages, it just depends on it depends on what you want as a business. The messages are so fun from my perspective because it helps. It's like a concierge in the lobby sitting and chatting with you. It's like a conversation with someone that's willing to be honest enough to tell themselves a little bit about you while you're waiting, right? Tips, give me something for nothing. Tell me how to keep my teeth white longer. Like, is it really okay to use baking soda, right? If I'm calling my dentist, I don't know. But, or tell me how to keep, if I'm buying wood for my fence, I just invested $10,000 in my fence. Tell me how to maintain it. What's the best product, right? While I'm holding. Tell me about new projects that are going on in my neighborhood and what great things that you're doing to help our community. We're all in this together, sort of a mentality.
Okay, so everything you just said was stellar. If I'm routing people and I've given 3 to 4 options, and I speak from experience. So when I was the marketing director at 49, one of the things that they tasked me with was going through, and I recorded the auto attendant. And so I recorded the main message that you got, and really most people were calling to know what the conditions were.
Right.
So that was number one. And then I recorded the snow report. But what I also did when I had downtime is I went to every department that had a phone and I recorded their voicemail so that it was consistent. And their big thought was same voice on no matter how deep into the system you get, they wanted the same experience. And I've called businesses where that's not the case.
Right.
So should we work hard to have that if we have multiple voicemails? And now I'm not talking like a Bernardo Wills where they have, I get a specific person's voicemail, but if you have departments,
right,
should it be the same voice? Should it be the same experience?
It depends on your company character. I mean, yeah, there should be consistency. As a business owner, you should know like what happens when you press 1. Like, what if that department doesn't exist anymore? Or did you know when I press 6, I hear this? Like, it's, you should ideally, I know you might be a giant company, but ideally you should know how your customers are being treated. And that means, how they're being, it's going to rhyme, greeted by your 10 major departments. If you are an advertising agency and you've got, 7 different departments, you might have your creative department have a creative recording. If you're, do you see what I'm saying? You're making the experience sound like the experience will be when you work with them. But if you're a law firm and you've got 4 different departments, yeah, it'd be pretty smart to have that be consistent. Most companies should have a consistent sound. And yes, recording your own voicemail at work is awesome. Like, so when you go down through the chain, you know what I'm saying? Like, auto attendant has its own brand sound. All of their 4 departments have an equally consistent brand sound. But once you get into the voicemail, then you're recording a message to the person you're going to be speaking to. Personal, it's personal.
How often should we be like calling our own business and doing like a secret shopper? And can you do that for us?
Yeah, in fact, when I do quality calls for my clients, oftentimes, which is on 2 to 3 times a year, and we also remind our clients to update their on-hold messages so they're timely, sharing useful information. I will shoot an email and let my primary contact know that, gosh, the receptionist was amazing. She's a 10 out of 10. I don't say she was a 1 out of 10. But if they want to know, I probably need to be better at saying, and if you want some feedback, I'd be happy to do that. I constantly am recording auto attendance like you, Josh, or I'm constantly recording the on hold sound. And when I'm prospecting, I will say, hey, just as a bonus, or just to be helpful, when I called the company when I called your business today, this is what I heard, click here to listen. This is how I was greeted. And then this is what you've got on hold. And I want you to love what you have. If you love it, great. If you don't, we've got some options and I'd be happy to share them with you. And people are like, oh my gosh, that's so great. Or I had no idea I still had Sarah on there. Sarah's not been with the company for 4 years.
I was on 49's voicemail for like 3 years.
I know. It's the last place. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys, it shouldn't be the last place. It should be one of the first places. I mean, we spend hours hiring someone, right? Like, that's right, because you have to have that employee be a right fit. And you need to, generate revenue off that employee and service your clientele appropriately. So that hello and please hold is the same thing. It's almost like its own employee. It is its own entity. The hello part and then the hold part. And you know what? As after we've been talking about it, it's a pretty inexpensive employee to hire when you hire me. I mean, once you hire me, like, it's done and done. Like, okay, we've reviewed how you say hello. We don't like it. We're going to get it so you do like it. We're going to upload it. It's done. That's a one-off thing. With the on hold space, we generally change once a year or twice a year, even more per year, to make sure the messaging matches the marketing. And once it's done, it's done. And I make it so it's affordable and hopefully over deliver with service and sound, so that you love what you have as much as I love creating it. So.
Stacey, I can't imagine a harder conversation than going into a business and then trying to tell them that their frontline staff is not awesome.
Yeah. Because
And
you know what? Honestly, everybody has a different opinion of that.
mm-hmm.
And what isn't awesome to me and you is honestly really awesome to them. I mean, I have to tell you, I had a call from a telephone vendor that said, Stacey, we just acquired this new business account, and right now their on hold music is from the Wizard of Oz. And I said, wow, that is so interesting. I have to think about this for a second. I know this company, and I have a feeling this is on purpose. And so we have to walk this gently. And so I will call the principal of the firm and, just have a quick conversation. And I was right. On purpose, love it. It makes everybody laugh. And I said, great, you have to like what you've got. Sometimes though, I have to say that if it's all for you, the business owner, and not for me, the customer, you have to be aware enough to say, wait, this isn't about me. Like classical music, for example. I have a couple of clients that love hardcore classical music. And I love that they love it. Like they've got a symphony background. They've played an instrument since they were 7. And so all they want is classical music. Even if their company is an industrial firm that sells metal or, that does logistics, which is amazing. We have to find the right types of classical music that work, that aren't crazy busy and full of highs and lows, which in the on hold space, oftentimes the audio is compressed. So it can drop the high and the low. And so I have to make sure that my audio is all in a mid-range level so that it doesn't cause the ear piercing peak. So great, I can find the exact classical music you want or come close to it, and then I can mix it so that it gives you, the owner, what you want, but it also is pleasing to your client base. So there's a
So
compromise.
I like what you said, that it's got to be, it's got to match your company. And you've said that multiple times this morning, but it's also got to be for your customer. And, like you were saying with that example of the Wizard of Oz, it's got to, they thought it was awesome, but maybe it wasn't awesome to someone else. But isn't, like, if somebody's answering the phone and they're not awesome, isn't politeness like a universal language? Like, isn't that something that, and that's what I ran into with this service provider that we work with, is that they were all in agreement that screening calls was more important than being polite. And I don't know that I can shift their mind on that unless I fire them and say, here's the reason why. My experience when I call you and interact with you isn't awesome. And I'd rather pay somebody else who's going to be awesome.
Right.
I mean, I would love to think that politeness is a universal language, but I don't think it is.
I think for the most part it is. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I think politeness is universal, but I think that what leadership thinks is important or management thinks is important is going to be and have to be what's most important. So, if sales is most important and frequency is most important, and dialing, for whatever your culture is you just have to find your own fit. And individually, we can be as polite as we are comfortable with. Maybe I don't know if I answered that right, but.
No, I think you're getting to it. I think it's a culture thing. And I think that's a bigger picture conversation, which is you've got to do business with people that you want to do business with. Right.
And maybe you're building a giant business on a bunch of really highly intense people, and that's great. The volume's high and everybody's happy.
Yeah. All right. You ready for a couple curveballs?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going out of town and I need to set up my autoresponder on my email. I've seen them from the super serious that are crazy vague, like you think they may have cancer, or all the way to the super fun, like, hey, I'm out of cell phone range and couldn't be happier. See you when I get back. Are we following the same tips with that you've been giving throughout the whole thing, or are there some different rules? But I mean, are we embracing who we are and how we interact with people and putting that through even into our autoresponder on email?
Yeah, I think so. Autoresponder on email. For some reason, you might encounter this, and others that are here might encounter this more than me, but I don't get a lot of autoresponders. I mean, I might get maybe 1 or 2 a month. I don't know. I think but I think that your script should be considerate. I think less is more, right? I think that's cute that I'm out of cell phone range and can't be happier. I think that's really funny. But I like personality. But yeah, I mean, I'm actually out of the office between now and next Friday, and I'll return your call on Monday. I mean, that's great by me. That's like leaving a voicemail that's too long of one. I'm not going to read it. That's like choosing to not leave a voicemail with a family member and just texting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Simple.
So another potential one is we're tiptoeing into the digital space. So if I have a Facebook page for my business and I have the messaging turned on, and I have somebody dedicated to answering that, what are some of the tips and tricks and or trends that you're seeing with how we do the customer experience in the online space, specifically with things like Facebook Messenger?
I have to say that, Josh, you're the one who really opened my eyes to this. And I have been working hard to kind of put myself in places where I can use the chat tool in websites. And this is really interesting. There's a company called Wave that I just had an interaction with, and I just hired this company to do some work for me. And honestly, like, it's a real person on the other end. it's like, I thought it was a robot. I'm maybe behind the times, but so then I started thinking, oh my gosh, all of these are real people, or is this a computer that's responding to me? So from what I can see, if it's a computer, they're doing a dang good job. And when it's a person, I can tell, because it's kind of like texting with someone. You can see the little bubble and you're like, oh my gosh, yay, they're getting right back to me. So the etiquette there is should be as authentic or as polite as it would be having a conversation. Oh, I get that this can be super confusing. Here's the best way to solve it. I haven't seen anybody though in a chat say, would you rather just call me? Like, yeah, I would. I'd rather actually have a conversation, because I don't get this. But
See, I use it a lot because, if I'm sitting, I have two screens. You probably see me look like and I've got, Facebook over here, and then I've got, my camera and everything here, and Zoom on this screen. So what I'm doing a lot is I'm on chat for like a customer service issue, and I'm doing it so I can multitask, so I don't have to call, because calling means I have to dedicate my attention to that.
right.
Whereas a chat, I can solve that problem. And I'll tell you, they're not all created equal. Some people, I'll give Comcast as the big example. You think you're going to start in a chat, but what you really start is with a robot. But they've named their robot, so it's pretty transparent what's happening. But there are a lot where it is a robot, and it's hard to tell until all of a sudden it gives you like, well, I can't answer this, and I'll connect you with somebody. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I was engaging with a robot.
Right.
The trick in this space, especially with Facebook, is Facebook Messenger. If you it pops up automatically. So if I go to like Bernardo Wills's page and they have it turned on, that little chat box pops up automatically, and then it tells me how good they are at responding. And it will say, typically responds in 48 hours. Well, now I know that's a worthless engagement. Like, I'm never going to hear back from you. So when I do a marketing review for businesses and I'm looking at how well their presence looks and how good a job they're doing, I will chat them just to see how quickly they respond. And it's shocking how many don't respond at all. And when I call them out on it, they didn't even know I did it. And I think that comes back to that. Your big thing is it's better to have a live person managing that chat. And if you can't, you sure as heck better be on there setting up the auto responders. Like, we do better if you call us, and Facebook lets you do that.
Right.
Calling us is more efficient, or shoot us an email, or here's another option, turn it off. If you're never going to look at it, turn it off.
And that's where the value from you comes in for me, Josh, is you're like, Stacy, did you know your hashtags are stuck together? Why do you even have that hashtag? I'm like, oh, I don't even know. Cause I felt like it mattered today. And, you're not, don't turn that on. So having someone like you kind of assess, like, do you really need that page on your website? I'm like, no, I don't. Thank you. Like me for your phone, you for my, marketing. Like, it's kind of nice to have people in your toolbox that can help you do and see things and put the right things in perspective so that you can clarify it and move on from it. Like, I'm like a task person, even though I might not be doing my tasks as fast as you'd like me to do.
Yeah. Emily jumped in and said the same thing, that she loves the chat feature for customer service because she doesn't have to sit on hold. And Stacey, I'm looking through the notes. I've been taking furious notes. I would say so much of what you're doing and what you've said is applicable to the chat space, whether it's a chat through your website or a chat through Facebook. I think the number one thing is, if you can't have somebody on it in real time that's a live human, then you better have an auto attendant. You better have an automatic message that generates. So if I get on your website and it's midnight and my order didn't go through, your chatbot responds and says, hey, we monitor this, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday Pacific Standard Time. You can shoot us an email in the meantime if you'd rather do that. I think that's key, and that comes back to some of your stuff. But you also said silence is not polite. So having an auto response means that I'm not just gonna send you a Facebook chat that just goes out into oblivion and I never hear from anybody. The other thing is like you said, is making sure that I matter to that business.
Right.
And so many people, and I always call it the lowest hanging fruit. People are going to message a business or contact a business in whatever way is the easiest for them. So if
Right.
they're on Facebook and they're trying to figure out when you're open and what your hours are or how busy it is, they're going to shoot you a message. And so I guess my question comes down to is, if I'm a business, should I look at having every possible customer interaction managed, or should I manage more like what's manageable? Like, is it like, no, we need to be accessible to everybody everywhere, or is it, manage what you can manage?
I know for me that a chat, I just don't use that. So, I mean, I think it's up to, it's how do you want to interact with your clients, right? Are you a practice at which you have patients and customers that are always coming through your door? Are you a online retail store? Are you a architectural firm, right? What kind of a business are you? And then figure out, the best ways to communicate with our clients is this. And then somebody over here will say, well, wait a second, I'm really in, what I'm finding is with my customers, they really like texting, or they really like that Facebook feature, the instant messaging or whatever. So just use what you're going to use and make that the best you can make it. And maybe don't dabble into a space that you can't respond to, like, you had referred to, Josh. Like, great, sometimes the bells and whistles are really fun. And I mean, I'm guilty of, putting Acuity on my website because I think it's great as a scheduling thing. But you know what? I don't really need that. So I just got rid of it. But I do dabble in, what's new and interesting, because I admire that someone else is using it, but it's a good application for them, but it may not be the best application for my business. So I think the bottom line is all those outward communication tools that ring calls back into you, your auto attendant, your voicemail, your chat, if that's what you're doing. It's super easy to just do an assessment and see what you hear, and then make adjustments accordingly. I've literally had my phone bill printed out. I have a full-time staff person, Tracy Billings, she's my sister-in-law, and I just love her. So she'll review our phone bill and look at how many phone numbers we've got, and why do we still have that 800 number, right? And what do you hear when you dial that 800 number? So it's that kind of a thing too, right? Like, what numbers are really active.
So Rob just chimed in, and I think this is a good point that kind of dovetails with what you're talking about. And he says, somebody who complains on Twitter about poor customer service from a large corporation, but then gets an almost immediate response and resolution. And he said he was sitting on an airport tarmac on a family trip and having 2 separate planes get canceled for mechanic pilot issues. The airline gave him large vouchers in response to his Twitter complaint. I think what's important about a company is just make sure, what are all the touch points that a customer can have with you?
That's what
and then what is your response rate or time on each of those touch points? And I tell people all the time, it's a use it or lose it. If you have a Twitter account but you're not using it, you're better off deleting it in some cases as opposed to keeping it, or put a message up there that you pin that says, we're not using this channel a bunch these days, we'll be doing that soon. In the meantime, here's a better place to get in touch with us.
Right.
I think is better than having, this silence is not polite. I keep coming back to that. I almost wish we would have called this business brew, silence is not polite, because I think that's such a key thing. But like you've mentioned this before, but 2 to 3 times a year, we should be changing our auto attendant. How often should we be reviewing all these customer touch points? Is it 2 to 3 times a year? Is it quarterly? Is it more?
No. So an auto attendant, once it's set, it can be set. So an auto attendant doesn't generally change. So the way that your reception script works, if you have a live receptionist, you have that script set, and that's how she answers the phone. And that's the expectation for her if she goes on maternity leave, for her if she moves to a different department, right? So that front desk person is always going to have that same script, but they're going to make it their own. The auto attendant, once it's set, your call path is set. So your greeting is set, and then you've got prompt 1, 2, 3, and 4. So on an annual basis, maybe you might want to review it because maybe prompt 4 isn't applicable anymore. And on that phone trade, maybe you've had a couple department changes. So you want to review that probably on an annual basis or based on turnover. If turnover happens, trigger auto attendant re-record for that department directory. But the on-hold messaging is best if it's reviewed based on, based on your company. So for a hotel, hospitality, you might want to review that quarterly based on your promotions, or maybe just cut it into 2, spring, summer, fall, winter. And then we have the holiday, because what you do in the spring, summer is different than what you do in the fall and winter. And in the spring, summer, you can talk about, so Hills Resort. So on their recording, we talk about booking, in the fall, we talk about booking spring, summer for family events, reunions, so we sort of off-season market, while also sharing timely information about golfing and reservations and unique specials, ways to save. So you want to change your on-hold messaging at least once, if not maybe twice a year. I don't think more is always better, but it also depends on, how many times are the same customers calling you back? And how many times are they hearing the same message that you've never changed? I mean, this is super funny, or I don't know if it's funny, but I see all my clients as customers in a restaurant, because I was a waitress for a long time and my dad had restaurants. And so all of you are little clients, you're customers at a table, and I have to tend to you accordingly. Otherwise, you're going to get up and leave, and you're going to tell somebody not to come back. You're going to tell someone that I didn't serve you on time, or the food was bad, or whatever. So I kind of have all of my clients' productions in my head, and I'm concerned if they're not changing it, not to benefit me, but to benefit their customers. So I check in on a fairly consistent basis without being too selly, just to say, is now a good time to update your messages? What's new? What's exciting? And they'll say, oh my gosh, I totally really want to make sure everybody knows about this product or this service or this project. So then we update the on-hold messages, because I don't want you to not be sharing what's exciting and what's new with your customers, because your customers want to know what's exciting and new, right? They don't want to hear the same message over and over again, because that's boring and it isn't sincere. So I like to change voice, change music, and update content. Even if you change voice and music, but the content is the same, your caller may not know. I don't know if that makes sense, right? If you hear it differently, sometimes you hear it differently, and that's good. So you can say the same thing over and over. In fact, in marketing, and Josh, you can back me up on this, people really don't hear you until you say it like 9 times. So right? So yeah. Say the same thing, just say it differently.
Yeah, and I want to key in, you said something at the beginning of this whole thing, and then you just said it now. So and I know this because we've worked together, but you always say that you want your auto attendant, the way you answer, how you deal with your customer experience is the reward for all the other things you're doing. So marketing and advertising, the result should be a phone call or a customer interaction online, however it happens, but the reward is a customer interaction. Mm-hmm. And so your role is making sure that the business is taking care and being intentional with that interaction, so that all that hard work of marketing and advertising isn't wasted. And I hope people are hearing that, because that is the win. The win is they called, they emailed, they reached out to you on Facebook. Now let's reward ourselves by making sure that, comes to fruition. But the other piece that you've said is how this is a part of our marketing as much as it is the result of our marketing. That whether it's an on hold message that's talking through, teeth whitening, or a tip or trick or how to take care of my $10,000 fence, or it's like you were saying, it's an opportunity to communicate a message, even if it's the same message, we're just changing the voice and the delivery. I really want people to hear that this is the reward for marketing. This is how you make sure that all the hard work pays off, but it's also a piece of your marketing.
And how much fun is it for you to be excited about having a conversation or buying or responding to something and then being ignored or being tricked? God, you guys have been advertising this forever, or I've been seeing and receiving emails and texts about this product and service, and then I respond and then I don't get any response back. It's like, wait, you're the ones that are spending, hundreds and thousands of dollars on advertising, and then finally I respond. And now what? This is how I'm treated? Not offensively, but you're acting like my call doesn't matter. And this is your reward. I'm responding, you got me. I'm excited. I'm calling because you helped me call you. So it is your reward. Every interaction, phone call, chat is a reward to your hard work. You helped me do this. Not you didn't make me do this, but you know what I'm saying? It is your reward, and it does matter.
Yeah, and I would say that customer service falls into that too, that if I purchase something from you and I run into a challenge and I need to communicate with you, and Emily and I are in the same boat, we'd rather do it by chat, but that's an opportunity to win me over. And I know a lot of people shy away from customer service because they're like, well, if it's broke, I don't want to fix it.
Yeah.
Whereas the other take is, if you go out of your way to make it amazing in getting it fixed or resolved, you might win me over for life, right?
And what about a chat that says, is there anything else? Do you have any other questions while you're on the line? While I've got you? And then, or saying, you could weasel in and by the way, I also do this. But that's okay too. Hey, if we've covered everything, you count on me to be here for you next time. And if you want any updates on what's new, I'd be happy to. Do you want me to chat with you this way, or would you rather me send you an email? Oh no, chat's great.
So Wendy was on the call earlier from Deer Park Physical Therapy, and I've had 2 clients now that are physical therapists, and they both have a fitness center, and they use an app called MindBody to manage their fitness center registrations. Well, MindBody, if you pay for it as a business, you can integrate it into your website. And so for both clients, I've been on a chat with MindBody, and they're so good. They'll offer you all the technical assistance you need, but they also have a technology, and I know this kind of goes beyond the scope of our chat, but they have a technology that allows them to remote into your account while you're logged into the browser, and then they can help you navigate through to get the answer you need. So they're not remoting into your computer, they're just remoting into your account.
Or app.
But, yeah, and then I've been on such a detailed call that they had to have multiple departments, and their chat they said, okay, I can't answer that one for you, but so-and-so over here can. I'm going to transfer our chat over. And then that person comes right in. I mean, they know what they're doing.
That's awesome.
It was seamless. And I go, as many problems as I ran into trying to get the software integrated, I will recommend that software to any fitness studio because of how great their customer service is. They really want to make sure, if you can't register people for your classes, they don't make money. Right. So it's in their best interest to keep you happy. And I think that's a message that a lot of people miss is in the customer service space, is if you're not keeping people happy, they're not going to want to spend money with you.
Right. No, I think that I think the chat aspect of things is pretty cool. It's no different than texting. It's just on your computer. So I just think, I think there's some opportunity there for to implement that kindness factor, that customer service factor into whether it's a robotic response or whether it's a physical response.
Okay, so now, oh, go ahead.
No, I just like that you continue to put light on that tool, because I think it's really like with, you know, the limitation of being able to go into businesses, like we have to just be open to being responsive through these technology tools, and then managing them well. I mean, the telephone right now is just ginormous. Like, it's basically, in the beginning of this year, was the only way we could connect. And many of my clients were like, my phone system is so dated, I had no idea how to manage, you know, that remote transition. And so they've had to look into different systems to respond. And who would have ever thought we would have had to learn that way? Thank goodness for cell phones, because then you could forward if you could, or you could just, you know, put your cell phone up as the way that you're going to communicate right now. And everybody gets it. And I love how we've all heard, like, we're all in the same boat together, just like floating in a different boat, or whatever that analogy is. But I mean, it's pretty cool. I feel closer. Oh my God, you guys, gosh. Oh, my sprinkler's going on in the rain. You should see it. I feel closer to my clients now more than ever, because I don't know. I feel like we're putting our time into all of those that really matter. And I like, if there's a, you know, silver lining, like, I like how unified and important and grateful I am for my clients. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like they matter. They've always mattered immensely. And now that we're all sticking through this together, it's just proves that it's a great relationship. It's a great partnership. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Okay, I want to. We're rounding out our time. Emily just asked a question, so I want you to answer that, and then I'll give you a heads up. I want to talk about, you've mentioned it now a couple of times, so we have to talk about it. But texting professionally. So Emily's question is that a lot of their staff is working at home, and their direct lines are forwarding to their personal cell phone. Should they be encouraged to change their personal voicemail on their cell phone?
Yes. Yeah. Acknowledge what's going on. Right?
Right. Hi, you've probably been forwarded from my cell phone or from my office phone. And if you're just trying to get a hold, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Like we're right. Just come up with a script that makes sense. And acknowledges, you know, where you are right now.
Yeah. Okay. And then you've mentioned texting. So I was a reluctant adopter of texting professionally. And when I finally adopted it, I was crazy professional about it, like capital at the start of a sentence, periods on everything, no emojis. And then now I'm like, I would say I'm lazy. Like I text like I'm texting my teenager, and that's probably not okay. And I will say things like, I got into this text exchange, Annie will appreciate this, with Kara, her boss, from Measurement, and I typed out LOLZ, lols, which my teenager uses all the time, and she had no idea. And so now in text, I'm trying to explain what lols is. So like, give us some tips, you know, in our partying conversation here on how you're managing text and where you're at, and, you know, turnaround time and all of that.
So I let my client lead. Okay, so if I get a text from a client and my client is semi-casual, which might sound kind of weird, or like, I got it, exclamation point, right? Or I'm in the phone room, okay, call me now. So I can hear them in my head. And so that sets my tone for how I'm going to respond. Not super complicated, but super responsive. I mean, texting is immediate and I love it. I absolutely love it. So I just let the client lead on the tone and try not to consume unnecessary time and keep it professional. I don't use emojis when I'm talking to a client.
Oh
I don't
no.
know what the Z in LOLs is. Laugh out loud Z?
Yeah, I don't know. It's something my teenager does. Maybe somebody younger than me can explain it, but it's almost like the rolling on the floor laughing, or one of those. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
cute.
So, I mean, do you wait for your clients to start texting, or do you assume everyone's cool with texting?
So in my world, I'm dealing with people in phone rooms and they're needing to go maybe install undetach because they now switched phone systems. So we oftentimes can't take our office phone into the phone room. So I'm like, hey, do you mind if I text you? And then I'll call you once you're there. We'll adjust volume. Can you take a picture of the hardware when it's installed? And yes, and then I don't text them again. Like I only use the text for that one circumstance. I don't see that as an invitation for me to text them. Because generally, especially in the hospitality realm or whatever business realm you're in, I'm now on your personal cell phone. So I don't save them. But I don't say that either. I don't say, hey, I'm not going to text you again. Or I don't say, hey, I'm not going to save you. Like, don't worry. We use it for that one purpose and then we're done. That's just my business world. And then for others, I don't think that that's a bad example. I think that's actually a really good example. Right? Like, is this the best way to communicate with you? Yes.
Yeah, and that's what I try to do too, is and because for me it's email's best. Like if you leave me a voicemail, it could be a week before I get back to you. I'm the worst.
Yeah.
But if you email me, you'll get a response within 24 hours, like guaranteed.
Right.
And it's just and I should probably be more clear about and I might need to change my voicemail message, but I probably should be a little bit more flexible on how I communicate and accept communication, especially as I'm talking about like all those customer touch points that I need to be aware of. Okay, so on that note, we've got just a few more moments left until we're out of here. Does anybody have any parting questions for Stacy? Robert says he assumes they will text and will usually text them to let them know in an email with documents. So he's emailing them, but he's texting them to let them know he's emailing them so the email doesn't get lost. And I think that's smart. I am the last one to assume people are texting. I assume they don't text. I assume they don't want to text me because I'm going to send them emojis and a lols. I just assume that from the get-go. So any other final questions, comments for Stacy?
If there isn't, I want to show you something.
Yes.
So I do my best to make companies, customers feel like they matter and that I want their business. So I'm that tool that helps you let your clients know that they're valued and they're heard and their business matters. And so I created these little postcards, and this one is, when I do my quality calls and I find that someone's out, with surgery, then I send this little get well, and they're on my website. And then every time we've been sending these out this year, every time we get, somebody does something for us, like maybe they had to reset the on-hold hardware, or we had a great conversation, thanks for getting back to me so quickly. I send this out of their little postcard that's a big thank you. And these can be customized. And so they're downloadable on my site. And I sent them out at the beginning of this year because everything was so crazy, as a way to thank your customers for sticking with you, or I heard you're not feeling well, because a good old fashioned postcard is super personal. Like, you had to take time to write it. And I would just say, on your own side, like, think about doing that too. You're not going to make yours look as goofy and as bright as as mine, but you create your own little teeny postcard, and then you would have staff using their discretion as to when to send those out. But that there are templates on my website, because I think the little things matter. I think the little things really do matter, and that they make a big difference. And even having a conversation with me about how you say hello, how you say hold, what you've got going with your chat, deal with all the social channels with Josh, but makes a difference. And it doesn't have to cost anything. Like, me just calling your business and saying, here's how you're saying hello, and here's how you're holding on. And if you love it, keep it. But here's what you've got. And if you don't like it, we can change it. Or I can help you change it, and you can do it yourself. It's more about that professional kindness at the end of the day than anything. So
I think that's great. I love your quote, little things matter and make a big difference. I think that's great.
We all know that.
So on that note, Stacy, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It was amazing. I found a lot of, I took 2 pages of notes, so there's going to be a heck of a blog post following this. Just thank you so much for your time and for joining us. I really appreciate it. Really good content. And then just a teeny tiny bit of housekeeping. So my plan is to get back to doing these on a monthly basis. And for the time being, until things change, it's probably going to be a virtual setting. So if you're not getting my newsletter, please chat me your email address, or you can email me at josh@tinderbox.marketing, and I will add you to the list, so you'll get an email reminder of these. Also, follow us on Facebook. That's where a lot of the events go up. We're streaming it live on Facebook right now as well. So I know a lot of good feedback's going to come in even after this. Like I said, I try to repurpose this content. So thank you everyone for joining me this morning. It was good to see all your faces. I don't think anybody joined us in jammies, although I'm only seeing top halves. So there could be some jammy pants out there. We just don't know. And then again, Stacy, thank you so much. And thanks for braving the elements. Got a little bit of rain out there today.
I know, it was way unexpected, but thanks for having me. Each and every one of you joining, thank you so much for caring, for taking the time to be here today. It means a lot.
Absolutely. All right. So feel free to sign yourself out. I'm going to hang out and just wait, be the last one here, because I've been told that's good Zoom etiquette.
Bye, you guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Stacey. Bye.
Stay healthy.
Thank you.